Hi, I'm Jamie from Sci-Fivision. Thanks for talking to me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you.
Me too. I very much enjoyed the first two episodes. So to start out, just tease, what can fans expect this season? What can we look forward to?
Um, well, we're going to be doing something we've never done before, which is consulting with uh, uh, we know as the audience, a serial killer who's pretending he isn't a serial killer. But the fact that we have to consult with this person who's, locked away, but still manages to have some power and control over the team, which is a really frustrating position for our heroes to be in. But it's also a brand new challenge for them.
Right. Now you've been working on this on the overall series for a long time. Are there some things that sort of change, season to season, behind the scenes? And are you still learning new things each time, or you kind of know what you're doing at this point?
I feel like none of us ever know what we're fully doing, right? Things change constantly. There's always opportunities to learn and grow and change, which is great. I mean, when I look back on the first season of this show, it's funny. I drove by the first stages just the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was 19 years ago. So crazy,
Long,
2005.
long, long time
So
ago.
like, wow, this is where I used to drive to work and there's the old stage and whatever. It was just kind of nostalgic. But you think about that, 19 years is a long, long time to have been on a series. And I'm talking years wise, not the break that we
Yeah.
had. But you know, um there was so much foundation that went into I would say the first 5 seasons that really gave us the runway for the next, 17 or whatever, 15 years. So it's been um it's been like an incredible journey. And I think what we're all learning, especially those actors who have been there for a really long time too, is that we just keep adding to the layers of who they are and their relationships and the surprises that they can bring to these characters that they thought they knew so well, right? And I think it's just constantly, it's going to sound cliche, but like evolving, like this, like the new title. That's kind of what this show's doing. We're dealing with Elias Voight. And we're doing things that we've never had to do before. And that's just really exciting storytelling wise.
How has your life changed over that long period since you started working on the show?
So my son was
Hands
one.
out.
My son was a year old when I
Now
started on.
he's grown.
Now he's 20. My daughter was born in the second season of the show. So my life as a mom has been Criminal Minds, which is just kind of wild. And then a few years ago, well, when my son was in high school, he was like, everybody watches Criminal Minds. Because it's really it really does sort of hit high school age. Even when the
Mm.
show first started, high schoolers watched it. And now the kids who were literally born when the show started are watching it, which is also just kind of fun. So it's kind of evolved in this really interesting way of the kids, like if they heard me watching a cut, they'd hear the theme music and like run out of the room because they knew that something scary was going to happen. um, to now being like, hey, can we talk about this episode and where that idea came from and all that. So it's been just an interesting journey as a mom. And I would say that's what's changed the most for me over 20 years is having, a 1 year old on my hip to, somebody in finishing a sophomore year in college. Um, that's that's the biggest marker of time for me. I think it's just the lives that have been formed since I started the show.
Makes sense. Let me ask you the opposite of that, though. Do you feel like as they've gotten older that you've approached it different, or does it really not, other than maybe they're, young or not? I mean, did it approach differently, I guess, the way that you do things on the show, do you feel like? Or I'm just curious. You made me wonder when you said that because since they have grown up.
Yeah, I think initially I had a hard time. I still don't really like to do stories that involve kids unless the kids are going to be okay. So early on, there were some stories that I was like, ugh, I don't really want to write that. and other people did, but I would say now it's more when we started evolution, I was very aware of this fact, right? That people watch this with their kids, that kids
Mhm.
watch this without parents, that, and I just never, I didn't want evolution, even though it was going to be on streaming, I didn't want it to be more violent or more sexual or more anything than the original had been. The only thing that really changed is the language, which always felt like it needed to get raised a little bit because, you know, law enforcement drops some language sometimes. I come from a family of law enforcement, and I know they definitely have some colored language there. And I think that was the thing we wanted to change for this is, have people drop a couple of curse words that you would never have heard on CBS. But that wouldn't be the first time kids heard that,
Yeah,
right? If
no,
they're watching
definitely
Criminal
not.
Minds, I just didn't want it to be any more graphic, I guess,
Yeah, that makes
visually than we had normally done.
that makes sense. This show can get very, very dark. I remember I was old enough and it scared one of them scared me. Do you is that ever hard like to kind of not be thinking about that and get out of that? Because obviously I mean a lot of it's not based on stuff, but I mean these things happen, there's murders in the world and that. So does it ever kind of affect you just in your own personal life?
Yeah,
Worrying about that kind of thing?
yeah, and I think sometimes we try to write to that. There's women and men on the writing staff, but women walk through the world differently than men do.
Yeah.
We when I'm driving to the market and my husband's in the car and I'm trying to get to the, closest to the door, he's like, well, just park back here. We're gonna walk around anyway. I'm like, no, it's not about being lazy. It's about when you're not
No.
with me at 6'1", I'm by myself and I'm thinking about the fastest way from the door to my car. And he's like, oh. And I was like, yeah. So I think if we can just make people aware when they're watching these stories, not to scare them to death, but just to like be aware, and
Mhm.
then that's great. And I feel like Joe Montana gets letters all the time from fans that say like, I watched this episode and it saved my life. I mean, he hears things like that all the time, which is really incredible. And so we just feel like if we've been a service to anyone who might potentially be in danger, then that's incredible.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you for your time. I
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
it. Like I said, I enjoyed the first two. Looking forward to
Oh,
seeing the rest.
great. Thank you so much,
All
Jamie.
right. Thanks.
All right.
Have a good rest of your day.